It is now 7 o'clock right here on the family station, Love 101. It is now time for the morning watch. Stand by now for the morning watch. It comes your way right now. Stay tuned.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love One on FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. I am your host, Stokeley Marshall. Special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541 or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also check us out on Love 101 FM Facebook Live and YouTube Live. In the main watch today, views on recommendations to amend the World Health Organization regulations. In the second watch, other concerns about the National Identification Registration Act. In our social media question, we ask, how much confidence do you have in the World Health Organization in general? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share a conversation on the program at first. As I quote.
All right, I quote for this morning. It is during our break. All right. So it is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. Aristotle, is that the correct pronunciation? Aristotle? Aristotle?
The great Aristotle.
Aristotle, yes, that's it. There's never enough time on the morning watch. Stokeley Marshall, that's your quote.
Rashid, how are you doing, Rashid? You're all right, sir?
I am doing well, I'm doing well. Just you are well, sir.
Okay. We are resolving a technological challenge this morning on my end, and hopefully it will be done in a moment. The main watch will be back after this break.
All right, not a problem.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats. They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with them, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere. But like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
The first sound they make is to simply let the world know they're here. And then it's our duty to help them show the world why they're here in the first place.
Give them every advantage with the Guardian Achiever, a plan that provides for their educational dreams and protects their health and life in the process. For more information, call 888-4LIFE to speak to an advisor or visit myguardiangroup.com.
Fix up the place this Labor Day with H&L Rapid True Values Labor Day Sale. May 18th to May 28th. Enjoy up to 20% off safety accessories, tools, lighting, building materials, paints, and Master Painter's paint accessories. Delivery and curbside pickup available. Conditions apply.
Are you ready for another exciting show inside Alive 1 to 5 this Throwback Thursday, May 19? Join us for another time to recollect and reconnect. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock. More fire, more power. 2:15 Inside Pieces of the Past, our history lesson series. Out of many, one culture. Part 4, the Indians. Then at 3 p.m., we go Proverbially Speaking, Sayings of the Bahamians, Part 2. Don't miss the opportunity. Live, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. this Throwback Thursday, May 19, on the family station, Love 101.
Can children who are raised within marriages do better on average? Does marriage lead to good and successful parenting? Can traits of a married couple impact their children and generation? Oh yes, they can. And this Thursday, May 19 at 5:30 p.m. inside the Truly Marvelous program To Have and To Hold, we are going to take a look at those impacts. So join host Colleen Beckles and co-host Andre Allen Casey as they take a look at being the influence as a married couple to your child or children. That To Have and To Hold, this and every third Thursday with co-host Andre Allen Casey, and it happens right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are now in the main watch, and we will be looking today, of course, in this first watch at views on recommendations to amend the World Health Organization regulations. Now, on May 16th this year, just a few days ago, this week, in fact, an open letter to the most honorable Prime Minister was penned by the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society. And in relation to that, the leader of the opposition was copied on that letter. And a number of concerns were expressed concerning recommendations from the US of A for amendments to World Health Organization regulations. And to be more specific, because I know a little bit more about having done some reading on it, it would appear as if the international health regulations, there are some proposed amendments to those international health regulations which are to be considered. Now, there is urgency to this issue as the WHO's 75th World Health Assembly meeting is to be held starting this Sunday, May 22nd to Saturday, May 28th, 2022 in Geneva, Switzerland. And we have online this morning to discuss this Dr. Wayne West, chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, and Shirley Richards, attorney at law, legal counsel for the same Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society. Dr. West, Shirley Richards, good day to both of you. How are you doing?
Good morning. Fine, thank you.
Good morning, Dr.
Now,
Good morning, Shirley.
the first thing some persons may ask is, why is the JCHS so deeply concerned about this? Because persons will argue that if you have a global health crisis, the international body, the World Health Organization, needs to be able to move quickly and to mobilize resources globally through, of course, the respective governments. And the question can be asked that this seems to be a good thing, so why are you challenging anything? The JCHS, starting with you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Wayne West.
Well, I would like to defer to our legal counsel on this. I'll ask her to open as to why we are concerned about it, if that's okay with you.
Shirley Richards?
Yes. We're concerned because of the amendments, which are the content of some of the amendments which are being proposed. Yes, we understand that with an incident or an event such as a pandemic, obviously it affects the entire world, and that it is good to have somebody monitoring events, monitoring response, because of course the entire world is affected. The problem with the problem that what we are concerned about is just how much more power will be given to the WHA and to the Director General as a result of these amendments.
When you say WHO, you mean the World Health Assembly, or you specifically mean the World Health
Organization?
Okay.
Right? To the detriment of the national power, the state's-own power, the state's-own health regime.
Well, so, can you pause a second there, Mrs. Richards? Only because of time we never enough time on the morning watch. Now, I'm going to read at least as much of the letter as we can, subject to time. Your letter is dated the 16th of May 2022. Is written to the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and the caption: USA recommendations for amendments to World Health Organization regulations. We note with alarm certain recommendations by the USA for amendments to the management of future pandemics under the International Health Regulations 2005. The amendments are set to be adopted at the WHO's 75th World Health Assembly meeting to be held, and of course the dates are set out May 22nd, this Sunday coming, to Saturday, May 28th, 2022 in Geneva, Switzerland. The draft articles you mentioned, Articles 12 and 13. I got those draft articles subsequent to seeing this letter. On the face of it, these recommendations, if adopted, will result in Jamaica ceding its sovereignty in relation to these matters to an unelected and foreign body, the WHO. That's what you said in the letter. We view this as wholly unsatisfactory and urgently request that the government of Jamaica to reject these proposals and recommend an appropriate alternative that will both serve the best interests of the people of Jamaica and retain our national sovereignty. The USA's recommendations are even more concerning, as it is unclear whether the countries that followed the WHO's recommendations on COVID-19 experienced the best outcomes in the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I read the entire letter. Now, one of the things that concerns me, Ms. Richards, is that the second line of your letter says the amendments are set to be adopted at the WHO 75th World Health Assembly meeting this weekend starting and to go on till the 28th. And I looked at the timetable for this assembly. I'm not sure if I'm seeing where there is any slot on the timetable for the adoption of the amendments. Do you know more than we do, Ms. Richards? Can you assist the listeners?
Okay, firstly, firstly, there is a document signed by the Director General himself where he says it will be proposed. Maybe the word adopted, but certainly it will be proposed at this meeting. This is what Director General Ted just said in the circular that he sent to the state. And looking at the agenda, what I'm seeing, and in fact, if you look back at that document, which is an annex to our letter, you will see where it refers to 16.2 of the draft agenda. Now, I looked at 16.2 of the draft agenda, but it doesn't seem quite relevant. 16.2 says Global Health for Peace Initiative, but when I looked at 15.2, that deals with public health emergencies, preparedness and response, 15.2 is strengthening WHO preparedness for and response to health emergencies. So I think there, in terms of that question, I certainly think there is enough in the agenda, in the draft agenda, that will, it's enough to cover that item, that agenda item.
No, something also in your letter, which is something else in your letter, which is of concern. The second paragraph, the second sentence in the second paragraph reads, "We view this as wholly unsatisfactory and urgently request that the government of Jamaica to reject these proposals." And in the line before that, you mentioned that if adopted, will result in Jamaica ceding its sovereignty. What do you mean by that, Ms. Richards?
So, for example, and we mentioned Articles 12 and 13, but I'm looking also at Article 9. Article 9, as it now exists, speaks about consultation. that the WHO may take into account reports from other sources, but before taking any action based on such reports, WHO shall consult with and attempt to obtain verification from the state party. The proposal is, in respect to Article 9, is to delete all of that requirement for consultation. Instead, WHO shall make the information receive available to state parties. So what has been deleted from that?
I see. I think I see where you're going, Ms. Richards, but
consultation.
I think I see where you're going, but we are already upon a break. So hold those thoughts. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
8884 Gas Pro. That's the only number you need to know. 8884 Gas Pro. Safety first, that's for sure. We feel it right. So when you're ready to light, day or night, the blue flame burns bright. So when you time you need cooking gas, call Gas Pro and you get it fast. 8884 Gas Pro. Get attached to the one you know. Gas Pro, gas professionals.
Rio Grande to the South Coast. Hotel workers and man we're off boat. This a for the craft vendors, red cap porters and transportation at airport. Jamaica tourism pension plan, building towards the future. For tourism workers across the island, retirement benefits to contributions. Every worker in the industry, permanent self-employed contract. For your service you deserve security. Yes you do. Tourism workers pension plan, build a bright future. Yes you can. Tourism workers pension plan, workers invest through contribution. All tourism workers, age 80 to 59. Tourism workers pension plan.
Start making your contributions for a brighter future.
For further information, visit mot.gov.jm or call 876-920-4926 for 30.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the main watch. We're having a discussion in this segment with Dr. Wayne West, Chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Healthy Society, and Shirley Richards, Attorney at Law Legal Counsel for the said Jamaica Coalition for Healthy Society. And the topic of the discussion today in the main watch, views on recommendations to amend the WHO regulations. Now, and to be more specific, the international health regulations. Now, Ms. Richards, before the break, you were outlining some of the concerns you had that they're going to be proposing, that's the word you used in this interview, proposing to change certain existing language where they would consult with the relevant state party, meaning the country in question, and to replace that with words to the effect that the WHO or the relevant authority shall. Well, explain to us what you mean by shall, and would this be the WHO? Would this be exactly who would be doing this?
Well, shall, as distinct from me, as attorneys, we know that shall is mandatory, may is optional. So I mentioned Article 9. There is also Article 12 that will give, if this amendment is passed and accepted, will give the Director General more power. Again, what was there before said if the Director General determines and the state parties, state parties are in agreement regarding this determination that the event constitutes a public health emergency of international concern, the Director General shall. No, the shall was there before, but what is now being struck out, the clause, the state parties are in agreement regarding this determination. So again, you are striking out. Again, you are removing the need for consultation with the state party, and so the director. So no longer will the director general have to act based on the agreement with with the particular state party. It says if the director general determines that the event constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. So that's Article 12. So again, I'm saying the deletion of the need for consultation. Then there is Article 13. We're not going through the entire document. And again, with Article 12, 12.3, the proposal is to strike out 12.3. Again, that deals with consultation. If following the consultation in paragraph above the Director General and the state party. Again,
I'm seeing it as well. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the paragraph being struck out there.
The paragraph being struck out. 13, no. With 13, and again, we're just citing these as examples. 13. House 13 begins, 13.3, at the request
of a state party, those words are struck out.
The HO shall offer assistance. So the proposal is to strike out the word.
So only because we can't go through everything as you did indicate, Ms. Richards, what is your concern? Your concern is that it's giving an international body of unelected persons the power to intervene if necessary in a health crisis, a health emergency, but you believe that it should always be done with the greatest reverence for the sovereignty of the relevant state party or country.
Certainly with the involvement, in collaboration with. And that is what has been, a lot of that has been struck out. The proposal is to strike out a lot of that. You know, even this one, with the 13.3, the state party does not have to request assistance. WHO shall offer assistance. And if you don't accept it, you must give a rationale why you haven't accepted it. And besides that, the new idea now of a compliance committee.
Okay, will it be a local committee or an international committee?
International committee for compliance, the sake of compliance. So it's no longer that you'll be free to reject assistance. You must give an explanation, and you better do that within 48 hours. And
I'm gonna try to cut to the chase here because if you want to say this, maybe you haven't. Is it that your concern is that, because I know that I think you're in favor of vaccination. In fact, Love 101 FM is on record as defending vaccination, as full support of vaccination, the vaccination program. However, we're having this discussion. So you are suggesting that, for instance, if the WHO were to mandate vaccination, they could do so without necessarily consulting with the government of Jamaica. Is that what your concern is?
It seems so to me. Once they would have.
I'm not speaking of any particular disease or virus. I mean, it could be for whatever the scenario or health situation is.
Actually, you're quite right, because it goes on to say actual or potential.
And again, Ms. Richards, and I'm going to bring back in Dr. West, although he deferred to you. Some persons may say, well, what's the big deal with that? Because if it is that there is resistance or hesitancy, and the WHO has information that says that it ought to be done, what's the problem?
Well, if you look at the data on the COVID-19 pandemic, you wonder what position the United States has to recommend anything, because the United States has among the worst statistics for the pandemic. For example, the USA has a population of 330 million persons. When you compare that to a state in India called Uttar Pradesh has 240 million persons. In the last 7 days, this is the last 7 days from today, prior to today, the USA averaged 102,870 cases per day. Uttar Pradesh averaged 129 new cases per day. So the
So
United
I think
States
you're trying to
has
say that vaccination isn't
500 and
necessarily the
let me
only
make
way. I think
the point. Let me, could I make the point? The USA is having 579 times the number of cases of Uttar Pradesh, and the United States is the one that's telling the WHO that it must instruct other countries. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think they have any standing to do so.
Okay. So what are you proposing then going forward? Because you have notified the government of Jamaica and the leader of the opposition has been copied. Have you gotten any responses?
Not yet. We haven't had a response yet. No, we haven't had a response yet. Can you hear me? We haven't had a response yet. But what we are proposing is that we have to do right in terms of pandemics. We can't be careless. But the point to be made is that we cannot allow people to simply bully us to do what they want us to do, even if they don't have
again,
a track record of doing very well.
some persons might not feel it is bullying. They might think, well, it is necessary. You have a crisis. Someone needs to jump in and take charge. Any views on that, Dr. West?
Well, the point to be made, I'd rather do what Uttar Pradesh did than what the United States did. The United States lost over 1 million people. Uttar Pradesh lost 23,000 people. So which one should I follow? But this recommendation is telling us that what the powerful people like WHO, which is heavily influenced by the USA, that we'll be forced to do what they did rather than what Uttar Pradesh did. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at many African countries, they have done much better than the United States. Nigeria only had about 2,000 deaths, and it has 68 million people. So if you multiply 2,000 by 6, that brings it up to 12,000 compared to the US 1 million. I'm saying the US and many of these quote unquote first world countries, their data, their outcomes on the COVID-19 pandemic is worse than our countries. So why should we be tied into what they have to say, which is what will happen if we go along with this thing?
And the truth is that we have looked at this before to some degree. We had a public defender on, and I am concerned as well about the sovereignty point. Whilst we might want assistance and may need it, I think it should always be done in collaboration with the government before an international body takes a step. But Mr. Richards, before we wrap, we know that Jamaica is a dualist nation in terms of its international relations, because you might have entered into a treaty doesn't mean it's automatically relevant to the country in terms of its being applied. You normally need domestic legislation to implement the same. Any views on that, Ms. Richards? Because if we even were to agree to this treaty, does it mean that all of those provisions will automatically apply day one, in your view?
Well, actually, there are provisions in the rules and even in the proposed amendment, that you must, if the state is not able to adjust its domestic legislative and administrative arrangements fully with these regulations or amendments thereto, the state shall submit within the period specified a declaration to the Director General regarding the outstanding adjustments no later than 12 months after the entry into force. So there is provision there that if you do not do that, if you haven't brought it into force, then you will have to give an explanation to the WHO as to why that has not been done. So
where does the JCHS, and I know that you're connected with many churches, where does the wider church go from here then on the matter?
No, I'm not certain about that. Let me say, I saw the amendment to Article 5, and I thought that looks quite good. So we're not saying that in total that everything is to be abandoned.
But no. That is very clear. Your letter is very clear, Ms. Richards. But where do you go from here?
Thank you. Where do we go from here? We are hoping and praying that whoever is in Geneva, whoever will be voting, that person will be judicious and careful and not vote for all of these amendments. That is what we are hoping and praying for.
Nothing that will undermine the sovereignty of Jamaica.
Nothing that would have the right effect.
Whether subtly, indirectly, or directly or otherwise.
Jamaica must do nothing to cede, to give its sovereignty over to a body that is not elected. Particularly as we know that this body has not done very well in this pandemic.
And as someone who has taught law, I totally agree with that as well. Our sovereignty must be intact. It must not be trespassed on in any way, shape, or form. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Have to leave you there this morning. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Shirley Richards.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Marshall.
Bye-bye.
This is Love 101 FM, the family station. Apply today for a DBJ recovery line of credit or Go Digital loan to help you find a way. The time by J&B Bank Small Business Loans. It is now 7:30.
Are you ready for another exciting show inside Alive 1 to 5 this Throwback Thursday, May 19? Join us for another time to recollect and reconnect. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock. More fire, more power. 2:15 Inside Pieces of the Past, our history lesson series. Out of many, one culture. Part 4, the Indians. Then at 3 p.m., we go Proverbially Speaking, Sayings of the Bahamians, Part 2. Don't miss the opportunity. Live 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. this Throwback Thursday, May 19, on the family station, Love 101.
Every day I get bigger, every day I get better. I'm a star in that shimmer. Watch me grow, I'm a winner, yeah. Every step that I take, oh yeah. Feeling great cause I'm learning, yeah. I'm a star in that shimmer. Watch me grow, I'm a winner, yeah. La 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 la. Watch me grow with Alacta Plus.
Help support their mental development at this important stage with a unique combination of nutrients from Alacta Plus. This product is not intended to be a substitute for breast milk.
I'm ready to say, don't know all this shot and tally. I have a message to everyone. Get vaccinated. Hey, tourism the main driver of the local economy. It provides us with job, free up the country. So everybody in the industry, get the job and come follow me. It don't hurt to the dirt. Link the nurse cause the vaccine work. Get vaccinated. Yeah. This is a message from the Ministry of Tourism. Get vaccinated. Just get vaccinated. You're deaf?
Something sweet is coming. Something worth the wait. Something that's gonna be great. Something that can only keep one time of the year. I just absolutely, specifically, wonderfully, automatically, Sunshine Ali love summer. Woohoo! Look out! Here we come! I love summer! Go, 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 go!
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing, and a very concerning story here among the latest news in the Gleno. Mechanic killed in Mobe crash. We're having these things one too many. And we also have soldier injured in checkpoint incident in Denham Town, Zoso, JDF. We now turn to the Observer. We have a plethora of stories here in the Jamaica Observer. We have, crash leaves tour bus operator dead. Okay, quite a number of stories here. And of course, there's a mix of bad news and not so bad news and even good news. And I'm trying to find something that looks like good news. Mathematics Honors College to boost St. Thomas, says Professor. Mathematics Honors College to boost St. Thomas, says Professor. Trying to find a bit of good news there to include. Coming up next, we'll read for some of the feedback from our Facebook and, of course, WhatsApp question, which is, how much confidence do you have in the World Health Organization in general? If you haven't done so, leave a comment on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp your comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
He knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of global crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church.
This is a reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
He knows my name.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I am your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at what our friends in the social media landscape have to say in relation to our feedback question. How much confidence do you have in the World Health Organization, WHO, in general? Rushane, do we have any comments?
Yes, indeed.
Good morning, Brother Stokeley. If you can use smartphone, you can give up yourself to NIDS. Because NIDS is like smartphone.
I think she's talking about
And
the
there's
other
no
topic.
way
Yes, I believe so.
and can't go to NIDS. Because your information that you put into the phone is going to use against you years to come. So NIDS is better than your smartphone.
All right, so I believe
I think she's answering the wrong.
Yeah. Let's hear what Sister Edna from Montego Bay is saying.
Good morning, Stokey. Good morning, Roshane.
Good morning.
Well, how much confidence do I have in the World Health Organization? None. Simply none. I will hear them out and hear what they have to say. Sometimes they make sense to me, sometimes they don't. But as for confidence, I put no confidence in them. The word of God said, I must not put my trust nor my confidence in man. My trust and my confidence lies in God.
Good morning. Rather than having confidence in WHO, we need to be very wary of their ultimately depriving us of our sovereignty, in health matters. So we have to be at all times alert and voice, to whoever will make the difference, our concerns. Yes. Thank you for the topic, and thank God for our watchdogs. Blessings upon them.
All right, over to you, Stokely. That's the final one I'm seeing here on
And-
WhatsApp. I'm not seeing any.
No text messages, no typed messages.
I lost confidence in the UN and its
There's
agents.
one that came in here. Good morning. I don't trust men like that. Colleen Oliphant sent that in.
Interesting. Over to you, Stokely.
Quite a number of comments there. We thank our listeners for sending in their various comments, voice notes, etc. Not asking you to agree to anything or disagree with anything, but we thank you for what you have to say. Now, what concerns do some persons still have in relation to what is now our new National Identification Registration Act? Where is it now? There have been some recent concerns being echoed from none other than the University of the West Indies Faculty of Law itself. We have online this morning to have a discussion about what some of these lingering concerns are. We have Andre Shackelford, an attorney at law and lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of the West Indies, and Basil Hanson, no stranger to the Morning Watch. He is founder of MTM TV and a Christian activist. That's how he describes himself. Mr. Shackelford and Mr. Hanson, good day.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
And forgive me, Dr. Shackelford. I think it's a Dr. Shackelford and not just Mr. Shackelford, sir.
So it's actually Mr. Shackelford. You got it right.
It is Mr. Shackelford. Okay.
That's right.
Want to be sure about that. Now, I saw the article that came out recently, Mr. Shackelford, in relation to concerns from the Norman, well, not the Norman, forgive me, the Faculty of Law, my deep apologies, the Faculty of Law at University of West Indies, Mona. And these concerns about NIDS had a lot to do with the types of biometric data that are still required, that are needed now under the new Act. We're not speaking about the one that had been set aside by the court, the new Act. And they have to do with facial image and fingerprint. Why is it that persons from the Faculty of Law are expressing concern about that, sir? Mr. Shackelford.
Sure. No problem. And just to indicate, these concerns were actually expressed in a submission which was made to the Joint Select Committee from last year, March. So it's interesting that it's been picked up in a recent article. Essentially, the sort of underlying philosophy for this new iteration of NID is that the old one essentially was forcing people to do things. The language of the bill was very heavy-handed, and very bad things were to happen to you if you didn't comply with what the bill said ought to be done. And the new language, the language of the new bill, is to be very coaxing. It's not as heavy-handed at all, and it seems to be predicated on consent, and it seems to be not taking such vast amounts of information. But there's still many underlying concerns with the bill. And one of the main concerns is the underlying operation of how this system is supposed to operate. It seems from the bill that it involves service providers, whether private or state providers, verifying someone's information by taking something like a national ID number or something of the sort, sending a request to a government agency, and the government agency says, yes, this person is in our database. And if that's how it works technologically, which seems to be contemplated by the bill, but is very vague and ambiguous, the question is, why are you collecting the facial image? Why are you collecting the fingerprint? In other words, there's a fundamental mismatch between how the bill is saying the system is supposed to operate and the type of information which is to be collected under the bill. And that's problematic for a few reasons. Anytime someone's information or data is being stored, it raises privacy concerns. This is a vast amount of information taken about the general population, which is stored in a central government database, which can be accessed at any time by a certain set of people, and importantly, can be hacked by nefarious actors. And just to add the other serious and pernicious concern is that this system will produce a record every time you use your ID card or you engage with the system, whether with a government entity or a private supplier. And that creates what we call metadata. In other words, it's not the core data, it's not your face or your image or whatever, but it's a record of a transaction that you've done. And the records of those transactions would exist, and you could quite frankly pinpoint someone's traits, their characteristics, their patterns. You could make patterns out of people by this type of data. And there's no real provision for the protection of that type of data. And once again, even if you put provision for the protection of the data, there's still always that underlying concern that these systems can be hacked, these systems are not infallible. And there are countless examples all over the world of national ID databases being hacked and information being sold on the internet.
Interesting. Let me rephrase my reference to the article. It is in fact an article from 2021. However, I'm noticing that in the document which you will find on the Houses of Parliament website, which is the Act itself, those concerns that you raised, having raised them, when you look at the actual legislation, those there is provision for the facial image as well as for the fingerprints. So clearly the concerns you raised, although they were heard, it didn't result in the deletion of those clauses. Mr. Shackelford?
No, it did not.
Did not.
So
Mr. Hanson, before we head to the break, any concerns you want to raise with us, sir?
Pardon me?
I was referring to Mr. Hanson. Basil Hanson?
Okay.
Thanks, Stokeley, for having me.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, it took a while for you to come on, but I am seeing where we are already upon a break. Hold the thought, Mr. Hanson. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back at the Morning Watch.
50 and over, get the best health plan as well as fabulous discounts. Visit ccrponline.org today or call 469-1944 and live life to the fullest. The time by CCRP is
7:45.
Tell me where you get the money transfer. Alliance. Where you get the money transfer. Alliance. Where you get the money transfer. Money move like a bird, like a plane, it's a blur. Money quick, money fast, money reach in a flash. This your agent no run out of cash. Pay the rent, pay the bills or buy the grocery. Make a call for the cash and pay the school fee.
Money when and where you need it. Alliance MoneyGram Money Transfer. Convenient locations island-wide. A member of the Sagicor Group.
Tell me where you get the money transfer.
Alliance. Do you have a heart condition? Your care should be in the hands of our experienced cardiovascular team at Partners Interventional Center of Jamaica. We're one of the leading heart centers for angiogram, stenting, pacemakers, EP studies, and ablation therapy. PICJ has the expertise and latest technology to treat all your heart needs. Call 876-995-7425 or email info@pic-jm.com for appointments. PICJ, your partners for life.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and our guests are Andre Shackelford, attorney at law and lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of the West Indies, and Basil Hanson, Christian activist and founder of MTM Television. And in this second watch, we are looking at NIDS and remaining lingering concerns in relation to the National Identification Registration System. And before the break, Mr. Shackelford, you had raised some concerns in relation to the requirement for facial image and fingerprint, and you made mention of the matter of metadata. Now, before you continue, Mr. Hanson, I want to just quickly raise something with you, Mr. Shackelford. Facial image. What is exactly facial image? Is it just a photograph?
Yeah, that seems to be what's contemplated, just a photograph.
Just a photograph, nothing further. So it's not some sort of measurement of the contours of your face, etc., nothing like that, to your knowledge.
Well, there's nothing so specific, but I suspect it would just be a photograph. It would be like costly to implement anything other than that.
I see. Mr. Hanson, before the break, you had started to make a comment. Please continue.
Thanks again, Stokeley, for having me. As I said before, in my opinion, the NIDS, the National Identification System, was conceived in lies and deception. And we have a second NIDS now, but we can't talk about the second one and not talk about the first one. The first one, in my opinion, laid the foundation for the second one. So in my opinion, the first NID was conceived in deception, lies, and as a result, the court struck it down as being unconstitutional. Now, if something is conceived in lies and deception, to the point where the court says this is not valid, this is not good, this is, they went back to the drawing board and they came up with a second NID. This time, the second one, there are some changes to the NIDs. One of the changes that I took note of is that this time it will be voluntary. In the first NIDs, it wasn't. You were forced to take it, and if you did not take it, you liable to become a criminal. No, not even Jesus Christ take away your choice. And so anything that seeks to take away people's choice, we have to, watch that very carefully. So
But
the
we have, but
second
this,
NID says it will be.
this one is voluntary. So what's the point you're making there on that point?
No, the second NIDS is not mandatory. The second
Yes.
one
So
is
this one is this.
voluntary.
Yes.
And that is
Well, I hope I didn't misspeak a while ago. I'm saying that this one is voluntary. What's the point you're making?
yes. The second NIDS is voluntary. The first one was mandatory. And I'm saying, yes, they made a few adjustments because that one was, in my opinion, conceived in lies and deception. However, the foundation still remains the same. And we cannot, deal with something and not deal with the foundation. So if those who conceptualize the first NIDS had in mind deception and lies, then why is it that you think the second NIDS is going to be any different? Yes, they make a few adjustments because they came under pressure. And so my thing is the voluntary part of the NIDS is what I like, but I watch that very carefully because in the recent campaign with the vaccination, they said that, the government said that, listen, we are not mandating this thing. We are not doing it. But there were private companies who tried to mandate the vaccine. And I suspect there's going to be a similar experience with this second NIDS, where the government will say to the people of Jamaica, we are not mandating NIDS, it's voluntary. But I suspect when you go to the bank and some of these big businesses, they are going to say, we will not do business unless you have NIDS, right? So in a sense, the government will not mandate it, but there are private companies who will try to force you to do those kinds of things. And that is where the deception for me, and that is where I'm watching carefully. Because I believe if Jamaicans were not critical thinkers, then
deception from who? Because it wouldn't be the government mandating anything. It would be a private business electing to make this applicable to do business with them, based on what you're saying.
Right now, Stokeley, we all have a TRN number. As a country, every single Jamaican has a TRN number right now. We are now facing a digital world, and some of these funding, you see, we hear it all the time, whoever pay you, them call the shots. And wherever we get our funding from. So in a sense, we have abolished slavery.
Hold that thought 1 second, Mr. Hanson, because I really don't want us to get into the realm of speculation per se. But Mr. Shackelford, are you coming in with a point? What's the point you're making?
Yes, man. I want to jump in because I do think Dr. Hanson does raise things worth considering, because the language of the new bill is that of voluntary enrollment. But it raises out
bill or act. Isn't it an act of Parliament?
Has it been passed? I think it's been passed by both houses.
Yes, in fact, I'm seeing on the GIS website where the Prime Minister said it would be fully operational this year. That's a GIS article here dated January 5th, 2022.
Right. The only question I have is that
I located the act on the House of Parliament website. I think it was a December 2021 date. Go ahead, Mr. Shackelford.
Okay, the only uncertainty I had is whether the Governor General had a sentence to it or not. Well, let's call it act for ease reference. So the act has the system coming across as one of voluntary enrollment. But the question arises as to whether it will be near mandatory. In some of the questions which my colleague with the other guest has raised already. What if I need to open a bank account or get a SIM card or need to engage with some sort of service? If it requires, whether as a matter of law or practice, the production of the identification card or what have you, or enrollment in school, for example, then you're going to have a system which is, for all intents and purposes, mandatory, though couched in the language of being voluntary. So the Act uses the language of accredited third parties, which can use the system as well. But there's no guidance as to who an accredited third party is. So the simple solution is to knock out the contours of who accredited third parties are. And that would give some amount of predictability for the system. And if there needs to be a challenge to saying, well, this category of people say they require enrollment in the NIDS, but for whatever policy reason it's a bad idea, that challenge can be raised. So I think it's a very important point. Something can appear voluntary on the face of it, but in practice, or even as a matter of law, whether primary or subsidiary legislation, it's actually not mandatory. It's not voluntary, as it should.
I see. I'm seeing where the Governor General has in fact signed it, Act number 25 of 2021, 1st day of December 2021. But underneath the words where it says an act to provide for, etc., the date is crossed out and it says the date notified by the minister bringing the act into operation. So
okay, so it's an act, but it's not yet in operation. Okay.
Not yet. It would appear so, Mr. Shackelford. So, Mr. Hanson, it would appear that Mr. Shackelford of the academic institution, the Faculty of Law, UWI, seems to lend credence to your concern, sir. Any further comments?
But as I said, Stokeley, I'm looking at the evidence before us right now as it relates to the vaccines. And so I cannot help but draw the conclusion that is the same principle that will be applied. The vaccines is not mandatory in Jamaica, but there are companies that have fired people for not taking it because they make it mandatory. And I'm saying that's going to happen. I will bet you my last dollar. I will bet you my last dollar, Stokeley, that when this thing is announced and in full operation, government will say it is voluntary. You don't have to take it. But I guarantee you, when you go to some of these institutions, they are going to require that you have it. And if you don't have it, you can't do business. How do you explain voluntary and by a country, but businesses are saying that it is mandatory for them to do business with you? That's to me is deception. And that is why I am saying that, because I've seen it right now.
Hold that thought, Mr. Hanson, because I want to bring back in Mr. Shackelford. If I go to a financial institution, for example, to do business, and they insist that I must provide a national identification number, the NIN, they insist on that number, and I say, well, it's a voluntary system and I don't have one. How do I respond to that institution if they claim that I have to have it to do business with them? What are you suggesting, Shackelford?
I'll respond to that shortly, but just to one thing that I guess is raised in relation to mandatory vaccination. This may be a shameless plug, but there's an article by myself and my colleague Conrad George in the Gleaner just about discussing mandatory vaccinations in the workplace and firing people and the sort of measured approach which the law provides for in that respect, despite some employers being very harsh about their approach to that. Now, in relation to banks or other institutions requiring the NIDS, it's a difficult question to answer, and this is the reason why. The act is too vague. We don't know exactly how the system operates or why it operates.
You are saying that the current act as framed is too vague? Vague in what sense, Mr. Shackelford?
That's right. And I'll tell you why. And I'll start by talking about the previous version of the NIDS. It was struck down by the Constitutional Court, as you know, and it was struck down for various reasons. And part of the reason for it, or some of the reasons, related to the ambiguity in the old bill. The sort of room for interpretation and room for the central authority dealing with these matters to interpret it how they wish to and deploy the system in a manner which they see fit. I think that problem is actually worse in the new act because we don't quite know how the system. Yes, it's worse. We don't quite know how the system works. I attended several town hall meetings put on by the Joint Select Committee to try and get a read and a feeling for how the system must operate, and several technical people spoke. And the more I heard, the more question marks I had, because quite simply, it seems that the system operates by checking if you are on a list, checking if you're in the system. And if that's how the system works, it makes absolutely no sense as an identification system. So to my mind, that cannot be how it works. So we don't know how it's going to work. And we don't know what information banks are going to use, if they're to use it, if the system is going to support their operations at all. So it's a difficult question to answer.
And the final word you want to leave with us, because I see where we are already out of time. So you're saying that if the bank asks me for a NIN and I don't have one, you're not sure what could
I
end up
think we
happening
need
as a
to
result.
wait for the subsidiary legislation to iron out a lot of the ambiguities in the bill, and to the extent that there is, or in the act, I should say, and to the extent that that subsidiary legislation doesn't come out, any rules or regulations or what have you, I think the act is ripe for a challenge, because we can't have the system just changing
More
shape
litigation,
from
some
year
more
to year.
litigation, more litigation, Mr. Shackelford, more litigation, it would seem, possibly. Have to leave it there this morning. Andre Shackelford and Basil Hansen, thank you, gentlemen, for being with us in this second watch. Thank you, listeners,
Thanks,
for being with us.
Stokeley.
Visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and of course, our Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs, and listen to the Morning Watch by downloading our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to us, the family station, Love 101 FM, the number 4 station in the island and the number 1 gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Please have a blessed weekend and join Reverend Dr. Dallin Tucson next week as he looks at other topical and controversial issues. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing back to Love in the Morning with Rashane.
Thank you, Stokeley. Have a great rest of the week. See
You too, sir.
a fortnight from now. All right?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
You're tuned to Love 101 FM, the family station. Stay tuned.
NHF benefits.